Welcome again to this Ask Me Anything organized by the Global Supply Chain Council. My name is Max Henry from the from the GACC. I'm very pleased to welcome you for this new discussion. And today we are joined by someone who's been very supportive on what we've been doing at GACC. I would like to welcome Milind Tailor, who is the Global Head of Resale Products and Service Procurement at Diebold Nixdorf. Hello, Milind. How are you?
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening.
So, as some of you know, the format or AMA is basically a way for you to ask questions to Milind. So we want to make this session as interactive as we can. So again, if you have any question, feel free to use the Q&A button, which is located at the bottom of the screen. You can ask questions at any time, and we will prioritize those questions. So feel free to ask, and then I will check out the Q&A and then push back those questions to Millie. So maybe before we jump into some of your questions, I would like to get Milind to introduce himself and give us a quick overview of his professional background. Yeah, go ahead, Milind.
Sure. So, good evening, everyone. Once again, Milind Tailor, global procurement and supply chain leader with over 20 years of experience driving procurement transformation, supply chain optimization, and operational excellence across industrial, high-tech, and FMCG sectors. My career spans managing 50 plus countries globally with a spend of over $1 billion and leading complex initiatives such as post-merger integrations, financial restructuring, procurement transformation, and digitization. Like many of you who stumble into procurement, I would say I chose this part deliberately. So I did my electronics engineering and post that I did my full-time master's in operations and supply chain. So equipped with the strong technical background on engineering or an analytical background, and my master's kind of equipped me to improve on my strategic acumen. So that's why I say I'm in supply chain and procurement by design and not by accident. Right? And over the last 20 years, I have overseen a number of supply chain and procurement roles, negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts, optimized spend, both direct and indirect, driven sustainability and initiative on the ESG sides as well. And today, one of my key focus is, after having spent 20 years in this function, one of the key elements for me is to see how we can elevate procurement from being seen as a tactical function to a strategic business enabler that delivers and creates value for the organization just beyond cost. So that's very briefly about me, Max.
Yes, great. Thank you, Milind. Can you just highlight maybe some of the milestones of your career, and maybe also share with us how did you actually get started? What was your first job after you study here?
Sure. So as I said, I did my master's in supply chain and operations. So it was something which I kind of designed and decided for myself. Post my master's, I started off at a paint company in India called Kansai Nerolac Paints, and started off managing contract manufacturing. So that's where I got the first-hand feel of what business process outsourcing is all about. When we do contract manufacturing, is nothing but you are outsourcing one of your key processes, and that's how I started off. Post that, I did roles in sales and operations planning, which helped me to understand the importance of cross-functional collaboration to create value for the organization. Then I had spent good 5 years into a 3PL company called Drive India Enterprise Solutions, wherein I was responsible for supply chain solution designing and at the same time selling those solutions. So and that's where I kind of realized that procurement and sales are nothing but two sides of the same coin. And that 5 years experience of doing solution design and selling kind of helped me to become a better at my job in procurement later down in few years down the line. And then I kind of got into this industry, which is ATM industry. Last 13 years, I've been with Diebold Nixdorf, starting off as their head of supply chain for India, wherein I had end-to-end responsibility for supply chain, which included direct, indirect, logistics, sales and operations planning, and spare parts. Later on in 2016, 2017, when Diebold acquired Wincor Nixdorf and became Diebold Nixdorf, I got promoted to lead Asia Pac procurement and supply chain. And then in 2020, I moved to London to manage EMEA and Asia Pacific. So as you can see, there have been different milestones in my journey, wherein I have kind of gained more experience from a country level to an area level to global. So that in 2022, I kind of got promoted to lead the global indirect procurement or the services procurement and supplier management. And currently in my role, as you said, I am the global head of resale products and services. So all throughout, starting off with different individual elements of supply chain and procurement, leading end to end, and today responsible for a full product category of resale products and services.
So just to kind of clarify your current function, what is resale products and services procurement at Diebold Nixdorf? Maybe just explain to the audience what you're covering in terms of categories here.
Yeah, so resale products and services for us includes three broad categories. One is resale, or in general, which is called as third-party products. So those are the products that we buy and we sell to our customer, which is we directly buy and we sell. There is no value add as such in terms of the product per se, but we do act as an integrator or a system integrator, as we call it. So that's the product on the resale side of it. And then there is spare parts that I'm responsible for. So as a company that's into ATM manufacturing and self-checkout and point of sale, we have to maintain those machines. So spare parts is the second element, and the third element of it is the parts repair services. So off-site part repairs is another element of my scope. So resale products, I call it as third-party products, spare parts, and part repair services. That's my current scope.
And for some of us who might not be familiar with Diebold Nixdorf, what is the company doing? What kind of industry are they into here?
Sure. So Diebold Nixdorf is an American multinational. We are into two segments, that is banking and retail. We provide banking solutions to the top financial institutes in the world. So basically, you talk about ATMs, cash recyclers, anything on banking solutions or cash solutions. That's one element of our business. And the second element of our business is retail. That's basically manufacturing self-checkout terminals and point of sale terminals and everything in and around the retail industry. So it's not just about the product, but also services around it in terms of installation services, staging services, and maintenance services.
Okay, interesting. All right, so we have a question right away, and let me jump into it. So maybe the other people would be also interested to push that question. Again, you can just click on the Q&A button located at the bottom of your screen, and we will, Milind, I will be moderating those questions, and Milind will be able to see them and will be able to answer them. So let me bring this on screen so everyone can see that question. The first question is this is from Neil, who's asking, what are the biggest procurement mistakes you have witnessed in the past 12 months? Okay, interesting question. Just to get going here.
I would say a couple of things. One, underestimating the impact of the geopolitical impact or geopolitical tensions, right? And we can see that now with the US, having Trump as the president of US, we can see the impacts of tariff. We can see the impacts of all this geopolitical tension and stress that is impacting the supply chain. So I would say that's one mistake where I have seen a lot of companies and a lot of procurement organizations not taking the threat that Trump gave very seriously, and as a result, there are really companies are really struggling today. In fact, I was reading this over the weekend somewhere. One of a global company, because of this impact, is likely to take a hit of $90 to $100 million. So there's only two options, right? Either they pass it on to the consumer or they absorb it. And in both the cases, it's going to be a disaster for the company, right? You cannot if you pass on to the customer, I'm sure it takes a hit on the revenue. And if you take the hit, then it's a big loss. So I would say that's one big mistake that I have seen people take or do, is not take the threat seriously or not take this geopolitical tension seriously. And as a result, not diversifying the supply chain from those high tariff countries that Trump has been talking about. So that's one. Second, I would say is underestimating the importance of procurement organization in the company. And this is not just last 12 months, but I would say that's one of the mistakes that I see a lot of companies do is underestimate the impact and the value that procurement can create. Procurement still is looked at as a back office function, someone who would just do the PO part of it or just the procurement ops of it. But I think we as procurement professionals can play a much bigger role. And then it's upon us as professionals how to elevate the role that we play in the organization.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the question, Neil. Okay, let's move on. We have just some of our questions here. Let me, I'm going to queue them and we're going to take them one by one. Okay, so this is a question. Can you tell us about your category management approach and how it affects procurement results at Diebold?
So when we talk about the category management approach, I would say first and foremost, category management is not a procurement activity, or it's not solely a procurement activity. When we talk about category management, for us, for me, category management is a cross-functional exercise, meaning if we are talking about a product category, say, and I'll just take an example, say IT as an example, right? IT is something where we need, when we are preparing the category approach or we are preparing a category management plan, you need the right IT stakeholders involved in the process. So that's the first and the foremost thing. It is not an exercise where to be done in isolation and a siloed exercise by procurement. It's an exercise that needs to be done by a cross-functional team first. Second, it is to be looked at as an activity to create value in the category. It is not an activity only to drive out cost savings. It's not just an exercise in cost reduction. Right? If you want to do cost, one of the outcomes of that could be or will always be cost reduction activities or projects that come out of it. But the activity of the whole approach towards category management should not be in terms of just looking at it as cost reduction. It should be what can we do to create value in the category. And when I say value, by that I mean what are the opportunities for us to drive the spend out? What are the opportunities for us to do any de-specification on the products that or services that we are buying? What are the opportunities for us to do the consolidation of the suppliers? What are the opportunities for us to diversify the risks, right? So it has to be, it's a whole encompassing exercise and not an activity only from a procurement perspective. So if you can't get an executive buy-in on the category management, then that exercise ends up being just a cost reduction exercise, and it will have a very narrow and a limited impact. For us, we do this in a close collaboration with all our stakeholders or the right stakeholders for the category, and as a result, the ownership is shared. So while procurement is in the driving seat, is responsible for driving the approach, driving the strategy, for driving all the discussions. At the end of the day, whatever we do impacts the P&L of the stakeholder, right? So staying on with the example of IT, whatever we do with the IT category management, that's going to have an impact on IT P&L. And that's one piece which I try to kind of reiterate with all my meetings, with all my stakeholders as well, is procurement does not own the P&L. We are not the owners of the P&L. The owners of the P&L is the business. So the way I project procurement is our job is to help you meet your numbers, help you meet your P&L objectives, right? That brings in a sense of collaboration and a sense of ownership from the business side as well. And when we do that, that then gets reflected into the AOPs, that gets reflected into the P&L numbers for the respective category.
Makes sense. Thank you very much, Milind, for sharing this. Again, if you're just joining us, I want to welcome you again to this Ask Me Anything AMA with Milind Tailor. Again, we want to make this session as interactive as we can, so feel free to ask questions by clicking on the question button, the Q&A button located at the bottom of the screen. So we see, it's great. We have more questions coming in, so let me jump to the next one. This is, okay, question. Hi, Milind, great to meet you. How do you build strong supply relationship in these current market conditions?
So when I understand when you say current market condition, you are referring to the current volatility, the current stress because of tariffs. Uh, for me, supplier relationship is not something which is determined by the current conditions, right? It is determined by a long-term approach between two organizations, and that's where when you onboard a supplier in the first place, you need to see what is it that you want to do with that supplier. Is it going to be, is it just buying a standard commodity? Is it something which is more strategic in nature? Or is it something wherein you are just trying to gauge let's say the services? But at some point, you need to define what is the relationship or the kind of relationship that you want to have with the supplier. And if it falls being a strategic supplier, then it is not about the current market condition. It is about how do we together manage or tide over the current conditions, right? So, meaning as an example, we all are struggling with inflation today, right? A lot of categories is where we see huge inflations. Suppliers are trying to pass it on to onto their customers, rightly so, because some of it is controllable, some of it is not controllable. But if you have a strong, transparent relationship with your suppliers, then you can sit across and understand from where the cost increases are coming from. If you have a proper cost modeling, if you know what is the should cost analysis, if you know the complete cost breakdown, then you know where the market is heading, in which category of raw material or the input cost the costs are going up, and as a result, what is the impact of that on the final end result. So for as an example, I can give you one of the services that we buy. We know that labor is 60% of the total cost, and we know in the market that we are talking about. For example, if I talk about UK, we know that there was an inflation last year in the range of 4 to 5% on minimum on the labor side of it. So we could then calibrate that increase on that element and see what is the net increase, right? And it's not like arbitrarily someone saying, okay, I want to pass on 5% increase to you, or I want to pass on 4% increase, or I want to pass on 2% increase. In some cases, it does happen, but if you have a strong supplier relationship, then or a transparent relationship and an upfront understanding of how you're going to manage the relationship, it becomes more transparent and much more easier to tide through some of these challenges. Otherwise, it is always, I call it as haggling, that will keep on happening. Oh, 5%, no, 2%, no, 2.5%, no, 3%. So there is no rationale to these negotiations. It is just haggling, right? It's you're going to the market and say, I want it at this rate. That generally doesn't work. So if you define a strong relationship, if you define the understanding upfront with the supplier, work towards building that kind of relationship, that level of confidence, then managing these challenging market situation becomes much more easier.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you again for that question. Let's move on to the next one. This is again from Sanjeev. Okay, so number of questions here. How do you think agentic AI will shape up the procurement in coming days?
Another hot topic. Agentic AI is a hot topic. And I will be very honest. My view on this is one, we as procurement professionals need to take this out of our mind that AI, agentic AI, generative AI, whatever you call it, is going to replace us. No, it is not going to replace us. It is going to be a big, strong enabler. So I call it as HUMAC, human machine collaboration. Right? It is where human intelligence will be amplified through the use of machines. So that's the first and foremost. So I've heard a lot of people talk about, the procurement professionals will get replaced with agentic AI and AI or generative AI. Answer is no, I don't think so. Having said that, there are certain roles which I believe surely will get redundant or will get replaced. So if we talk about a standard P2P process as an example, where today we have buyers who are raising the purchase orders, who are chasing the suppliers, taking the invoice, booking the invoice, sending it to accounts payable for payment. That cycle, the entire P2P cycle, to me, will get replaced by AI. Right? Once the PR is approved, AI, you call it as bots or generic AI, those will take over. They will check if once the PR is approved, if everything is ready, available, they will convert that PR into a PO, send it out to the suppliers, get their acknowledgement, validate the lead times or the confirmations which is coming in, and inform the people. And second, on the accounts payable side of it, today there is a lot of time goes in, I don't know, depending on the organization, either the receiver of the service or finance booking the invoice in the system, be it SAP, be it Oracle, whatever, and then doing the payments, right? All that processing time, that activity will get automated. So for sure, there were certain jobs that will get eliminated or will become redundant, but at the same time, it will also create a number of opportunities for us as procurement professionals to create more value. Another example, very classic example, we were talking about the category management exercise, right? Today, if you see the amount of time that we spend in gathering the data, in analyzing the data, is probably 60% of the category management, right? But with AI, the way I see it is, once you define your parameters, AI will be able to give you everything upfront in terms of data, in terms of information, in terms of market trends, in terms of the various, we talk about the Gartner quadrant, which supplier is in which quadrant, etc., right? So all that information will be made available as an input for the category plan by AI. As a result, we as category management experts get more time to spend with our stakeholders and strategizing it, right? And that's where I see the value coming in from AI. It's not about replacing people. It's not about taking away our jobs, but helping us make our life simpler and enabling us to add more value to our business. So that's my view on, in general, on AI. But again, we all have to be receptive, we have to upskill, and we have to adapt to this upcoming technology. If you don't adapt it, then the chances are very high that you will be left behind and you will be struggling as a professional and as a procurement organization, both.
Yeah, it's all good points. Yeah. Thank you, Milind, for this. Okay, there's a second question also from Sanjeev, who's asking, how do you see inflation-related price increase, and what strategies can help mitigate this as cost avoidance?
So as I said previously, right, inflation is something which is existing. We cannot run away from it. We cannot ignore it. We have to accept it. But how do you measure? How do you minimize the impact is the question. So one, as I said, by having transparent costing and understanding with the supplier, in terms of how the inflation is impacting the cost, the landed cost. And second then is, how do you get more creative, in terms of managing your own cost? And when I say creative, in terms of demand management, in terms of specification management, in terms of consumption management, right? So those are the ways wherein you can help. One, mitigate the impact and be more proactive.
Okay, yeah, just a quick comment from also, if you click on the chat, Milind, you will see a comment from Neil who's saying, I would imagine that procurement and logistics systems are far from being digitized and aligned. We have to get this digitization aligned before we can start talking about AI in procurement. This is a comment in the chat. I'm not sure whether you can see it.
Yeah, okay, I'm reading it now. Digitization is the backbone, or digital supply chain is going to be the backbone for the future, right? If we talk about anything like AI or any risk mitigation strategies or any technology tool that we talk about, at the end of the day, it's all about being able to adapt the digital technologies. The challenge today is there is too many options available and the technology is changing too fast, right? And my experience, I have seen, by the time you evaluate one tool, or you kind of try and say, okay, make up your mind on a particular tool, there are another 5 options that are new options that come into the market. So by the time you evaluate and you realize that, okay, this is right, fit for purpose, there is an advancement. So as a result, a lot of times we end up playing the waiting game. My only recommendation on this would be, start small. Think big, start small, fail fast. That's the mantra that I would say. That would help us to help you to ensure that you are not lagging behind or too behind the current technology, and at the same time, it gives you the certain technologies available in the market to keep yourself up to date in terms of the market conditions. And a fair point, I completely agree. Not everything is digitized today, but I think it is not too far that things will and everything will get digitized, and that will give us the complete transparency that we talk about in the supply chain. Today, we do not have that transparency.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a very interesting point on the speed of, technology advancement. And, the problem that we see happening is that there are a lot of companies very excited and interested in those new technology. But like you say, by the time they go through the process of evaluating and negotiating with the vendors, there are some new tools coming up, and the technology that you are in the process of acquiring is becoming already obsolete. And with AI and Gen AI, things got so much faster, and it's very hard for companies to keep up with what's happening, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say this in last 6-8 months, I've genuinely seen some real use cases of AI coming up. Use cases that have genuine day-to-day practical application. A year ago, it was all on paper, on PowerPoint presentations, on concepts. But I can see that there are a lot of things now coming up which can be used on a day-to-day basis. So the technology has evolved very fast, over the last 6-8 months, and I think that the rate of evolution will only increase in next few months or a few years to come, and that will also bring in a lot of new players in the market, because it's an exciting field. It's a very interesting field, and as a result, we will see a lot of new players coming into the market.
Okay, a very good question. Thank you, Sanjeev, for this. Let's move on to the next question. Question from Sharon saying, okay, good point. Can you share some tips on how do you go from being a cost center to a value generator?
So first and foremost, we need to define what value means for you as a specific organization, right? Depending on what state you are in, or what maturity curve of the organization you are in, value can mean different things to different people. For me, value could be in terms of how can procurement help drive revenue. First, and for me, at least, especially in my current role, one of the key KPIs that I have is driving revenue growth. So I have a target to help drive revenue growth, because that's how I can create value. Is that a procurement responsibility? No, driving revenue is sales and business development or marketing, right? But procurement can be a big enabler. Second, for sure, is risk mitigation. How do you mitigate the risk for your organization? Because there are so many risks. As an example, we spoke about the tariffs at the start. If, as a procurement organization, we did not proactively plan for this tariff, there are companies that are probably at the brink of getting bankrupt, because the tariffs will just make their businesses unviable. Example, if we talk about certain product categories where coming in from China will have a 25% tariff, I don't think many companies have that much margin. So, that's risk mitigation, right? The third element, and which is a very big and an important element today, is sustainability. Carbon emission reductions, right? A lot of us have carbon emission reduction goals, which we have called out to the streets, or which we have committed to our stakeholders or to our investors. In that case, if you look at the carbon emission, 90% of the carbon emissions are from within the supply chain of any company, and that's where we can create value. How can we help get more eco-friendly products? How can we enable more circular economy, right? So again, I'm just giving some of the elements of how we can become a value generator, and it is for you individually to look at it for your organization and see what are those things that are important to your organization, and depending on that, how can procurement contribute to your company global objectives or company's objectives. There's
Okay,
no
thank
one
you.
size fits all here, but these are the different elements of how procurement can create value for the organization,
Okay, thank
not
you very
just cost
much.
saving.
Thanks, Milind. Yeah, Sharon, thanks for the question. Again, if you want some clarification, feel free again to ask question. And for those who are just joining us, I want to remind that this is a fully interactive session. We had a lot of topics. We covered a lot of questions already. But this is not the end. We're going to be talking to Milind for another 25 minutes. So if you still have questions for Milind, feel free to drop your question in the Q&A. You could just click on the question mark button at the bottom of the screen, and Milind will be taking those questions one by one. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This is, okay, question from Brian. How can you balance global sourcing initiative with the need to be responsive locally? Good question, yeah.
Great question, Brian. I must say, because this is always a tension, right? There is always a healthy tension, and I have tension, or should be a healthy tension and not a stress. I call it as global. Think global, act local. Meaning, uh, for your standard categories or for your global categories, the strategy has to be defined globally, and it has to be executed locally, taking the feedback of your local stakeholders, taking the feedback of your local geographies in place. So as an example, and since we are talking about since we are in the APAC time zone, I would say, having handled APAC myself, I had this problem in the past when I was running APAC. People sitting in US or EMEA would always tell me, Milind, why don't you consolidate the suppliers, for your 15 countries in APAC? No, I cannot consolidate it, because there is no supplier that will be able to manage a local, all the different countries in APAC, because APAC is culturally so very different. And from a business perspective, if you look at Indonesia versus a Hong Kong versus a China versus a Thailand, all are very different, and very seldom you will be able to do some of these things centrally. So one, you first has to be ensure that you align with your global strategy. And then, basis that global strategy, you need to then define what can be done locally to meet the local requirements. And second, what is available from the supplier ecosystem as well. Not everything that you do globally will work at a local level, or will not be applicable local level. And that's where the importance of communication comes in, wherein you need to be able to communicate your local nuances, local requirements, and local challenges to the global category management team, so that they can incorporate those nuances in their global category plans. Otherwise, there will always be a tussle between global and local requirements. So there has to be a healthy balance, communication and collaboration between global and local, to ensure that both of them understand each other and work in a close collaboration.
You mentioned earlier that on category management, do you have global category leaders located in different countries within the group, or are they all in the same location, all at the headquarters?
No, so we have global category leaders based in different countries, and spread across the globe. So there are, in some cases, there are global category leaders, and under them there we also have regional category leaders, who then feed in that local nuance or regional nuance into the global category leader, to be able to come up with this kind of a harmonized global category plan that works not just on paper, but can be executed at the local level as well.
Okay,
Because
interesting.
if as an example, it's practically humanly impossible for one person to understand the nuances in 50 plus countries, right? So we operate in 50 plus countries. So for one person sitting somewhere in the world, be it US, be it Europe, be it APAC, anywhere, it doesn't matter where the person is based out of, but it's humanly not possible for one person to understand the nuances of all the countries. As a result, what happens is, more often than not, the country or the geography that has the highest spend has the highest weightage in terms of the inputs or the nuances that go in, which is fair, because if for example, US has 80% of the spend, then the strategy has to be aligned to 80% or more to serve the US needs. But in a global organization, more often than not, the spend is more diversified and spread across, and that's where having a global leader supported by the regional leaders or regional category leaders helps to make that balance into the global plans.
Okay, just another question quickly. I mean, you're more focused on the indirect categories, right, in your role. Do you also have a global sourcing leader who would focus on the direct and the
Correct.
raw materials? Yeah, you do, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the way we are structured is we have direct procurement and we have an indirect procurement as two separate organizations, and both of them have a global leader for direct and a global leader for indirect.
Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Again, feel free to continue asking question to Milind. We still have some time. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so this is a question. What is the role of technology in enhancing procurement effectiveness at Diebold? Yeah.
So I think we briefly touched upon the technology part when we were talking about AI, right? Technology to me is the backbone of what we do and how we do stuff. If we want to be effective, if we want to be efficient, technology is the backbone. So from a company perspective, we do have, of course, our standard ERP systems in terms of SAP and Oracle, which acts as a backbone from our financial and accounting perspective and inventory management perspective. But then, in addition to that, we also have a number of tools, that help us in carrying out our jobs better. There are a number of tools that are available, and I think I may not be able to share all of the tools, but there are different tools available on the technology side that helps us to do this job. So be it at category management, be it in terms of managing our direct materials, the phase in, phase out, so there are different tools I would say available, which helps us to manage this. Otherwise, you can imagine managing 50 plus countries or having operations in 50 plus countries without any technology is just going to be nightmare. So yes, technology is the key element, and without technology, we just cannot manage global operations at this scale.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, this is a question from Yanisa. Any tips to get better procurement agreements when negotiating with suppliers?
Oh, okay. So I would say first and foremost, it depends on which category, right? So for example, the way I did it or I have done it in my experience is for each category, I like to get my cheat sheet created. In terms of, so for example, if we talk about logistics, right? For a logistics, which is, let's talk about only ocean logistics, let's say ocean shipments, or when you're negotiating with the ocean freight provider, you have your cheat sheet prepared in terms of what are the 10 most important elements that you want in when you are negotiating with the logistics provider, right? Those 10 points then become your cheat sheet. You put in what is your best expectation on those things, right? So you could start off by having payment terms. You could start off by having, if you're talking of a logistics provider, you can start off by defining what should it be volumetric weight versus should it be actual weight? Should it be, what are the handling charges at the port? Is it transparent, or is it going to be passed through, or is it going to be a fixed rate? So you prepare your own cheat sheet in terms of what are the 10, and I'm just saying 10. If it is longer, then it becomes more difficult. But define your top 10 most important things that you want to accomplish in that negotiation. What is your best outcome that you are expecting? And that's your starting point. From that starting point, you start your negotiation with the supplier. Not all the times everything is possible, but then you start with what you need or what is your best outcome. And also one of the things I've seen is if you are running an RFP, then try and make these things clear in the RFP, or define it in the RFP very clearly. This is how I want you to how I want you to quote, right? So example, if your company's policy is not to go have anything less than 60-day payment terms, put it in the RFP only 60 days. If you cannot give the 60 days, do not quote. or I want to pay you only on volume or on actual weight, not on volumetric weight. I don't know if you want to take that call, but again, I'm just making up some, giving you certain examples. So there are things when you are doing it in the RFP and you make that as very clear, non-negotiable items, then it takes away a lot of discussion later on after the suppliers have quoted, and also it makes your life very easy when you are doing a comparison. You get an apple to apple comparison on the terms and conditions that you have asked for, so you have less number of items to be discussed post the RFP. So planning or proactive planning, listing down what are the things that are most important to you, defining the best outcome against each one of them, and trying to be very clear upfront with the supplier in terms of your expectation can help you negotiate much better terms for your organization.
Okay. Thank you very much, Milind. Great tips. Feel free again to ask your question. We got 10 more minutes before we wrap up the session. So this is a time for you to go ahead and ask your final question. Let's move on. We still have a few questions in the Q&A. Next question is, okay, what's your take on de-risking from China?
Oh, I wish I had a crystal ball, and I could see in what is going in Mr. Trump's Donald Trump's head. I think unfortunately, I don't think anyone of us have an answer. In fact, I was reading this in this article just last week, because this is a very hot topic, right? A lot of companies are also are doing a wait and watch kind of a process, especially on moving out of China, right? Because if you see a lot of companies, the regulation or the order from the White House is still not very clear in terms of how this will impact, right? In fact, yesterday I was reading the same document which we also received. It makes certain things very clear, but it does not make certain things very clear. So example, if we talk about de-risking China, we know China, Mexico as of now, and Canada is on his radar. He spoke about EU as well, I think in last week, that EU is what he said. He made a nice statement around European Union. Now, do you want to move to Vietnam? Maybe that's an option. But then tomorrow, depending on which side of the bed he gets up, he decides to put 25% tariff on Vietnam as well. What can you do? Nothing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, there is no straight answer to this question. Depending on the answer is one, yes, you have to de-risk. There is no two thoughts about it. You have to de-risk, and which means you have to start looking at multiple options. It's not like you pick from China, move into Thailand, Vietnam, or any of the Southeast Asian countries, or you go to Mexico. Mexico is ruled out because that's still 25% tariff is there for Mexico as well. So the only option is you have to start putting your eggs in multiple baskets. Unfortunately, that's the only piece which I can think of at this stage. There is no straight answer because we don't know how this thing will pan out over a period of time.
And when you put those, and when you put those different eggs in different baskets, I mean, are you staying away from China and those countries where that Trump is targeting right now, or what's it? Because it never ends, right? It could, like you say, it
never ends.
Nobody knows who will be the next country, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, that's the challenge, and that's why can the world move away from China? I don't think so. I don't think it's possible to move away from China in a very short term, right? Companies have started diversifying their supply base. So outside of China, we know Apple has done that, or all the big companies have started to de-risk it. But to what extent? But you cannot move the full supply chain out of China overnight. So, and if you're moving such a big supply chain, you need to be very sure that that country there where you are moving in is not going to fall on Trump's radar, and they are also going to add, and that's going to add another 25%. We don't know. We just don't know what will happen. So there is a lot of uncertainty, and unfortunately, I think none of us have that crystal ball to say, okay, this is the right country to go, or this is the right thing to do. It is all about trying to keep all your options open, taking small steps, see where you can get your alternate supplier, for your biggest item, right? So if the way I look at it is, I would focus on my 20% that is impacting 80% of my volume. So if I'll focus first on those high volume items where I have a big financial impact, start de-risking or diversifying the supply base for those high value items, and then start looking at the smaller ones.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Milind. All right, so move on to the next question. Okay, what advice would you have for people who want to succeed in global procurement? That's a good question as we end this session. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so I would say, from my experience, if you want to be really succeeding at global procurement in a global environment, first and foremost, your functional skills are the key, right? And I think that's table stakes. You need to be good in your subject, which is procurement. That's given. But what differentiates or what makes a good procurement person or a good procurement leader great is having the soft skills in terms of stakeholder engagement. That's very important, right? If you have the right relationship with the stakeholder, if you listen to them and understand their needs, not their wants, understand their needs, that's the key. So first, stakeholder engagement. Second, networking skills. When you are managing a global procurement, global organization, you need to have a broad network of contacts within your organization and outside the organization, which is your supplier ecosystem, that will help you deliver better solutions and better outcomes to your business needs, right? So that's the second element. The third element, I would say, is consulting. I know we are not consultants, but you need to be able to identify what are the challenges that your stakeholders are facing. Believe me, when we are talking of a global environment, each one of them will have different challenges, right? A challenge in Mexico would be very different from a challenge in Europe versus someone in, say, in India or in Hong Kong or in APAC, right? So understanding, having those consulting skills to be able to identify those challenges, or uncover those challenges and propose alternative solutions is going to be the key. So those are the three things that I would say would help you to be better in managing global sourcing or global procurement organization: stakeholder engagement, networking skills, and consulting skills.
Okay. Understanding AI would be another, or mastering AI could be also a very important skill coming up. Yeah.
True. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, digital skills, digital fluency, I'm not even mentioning here because I guess all of us, it's like knowing your sourcing, knowing how to negotiate, knowing how to write a contract, knowing how to do category management. Nowadays, knowing technology and using the technology to the optimal is, I guess, given, right? And these days, if you look at the Gen Zs, they know technology better than probably Max, you and I know, because they are only dealing with technology these days, right? So they are pretty well adept in managing technology and and using them more efficiently and effectively. But yes, of course, great point. Digital fluency is another key element, and that's not just in global procurement, but doing procurement at whatever level you are. Having digital fluency is the key.
Yeah. Any function in supply chain and probably across all industries as well. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Milind. That was we got a lot of questions, very interesting topics. I want to again thank you for taking the time for being with us today, sharing your insight, giving a lot of advice, a lot of tips for people to to be better at their procurement role. We covered a lot of different topics. I think it was very interesting. So thank you again for sharing today, Milind.
Thank you, Max. Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
This was our AMA with Milind Tailor, with the Global Head of Resale Products and Services Procurement at Diebold Nixdorf. We will do this AMA again in a few weeks. So, and if you're interested, to check out our event calendar on chain.net. And again, we look forward to see you next time. Thank you, Milind, and we look to again meet you and see you at our next event.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Max.
Thank you. Bye-bye.